Yes and no. Okay. First of all, Jaguar was owned by Sir William Lyons. I mean, he was the Jaguar, and he was involved in the company all the way into the 70s. But during that time period, it became part of British Leyland, British Motor Corporation. All the British cars in, I suppose you can say, the late 60s, early 70s, was facing the pressure from effectively Japanese imports. And they had to consolidate all the motor cars together. And German and all, they were facing a lot of competition, so they had to consolidate. So you had various consolidations. You had British Motor Corporation, you had British Leyland, and all of these companies came in and took over, Jaguar merged with them. Now, those were the worst days of the British motor car industry. The quality was poor, they didn't come up with new models, there wasn't enough money spent on the cars. So you can say up until, I suppose, the late 60s, when Jaguar was independent, it really did well. From the 60s to the 90s, from the 70s to the 90s, quality was very indifferent. And I mean, the whole British industry went through all the strikes and the winter of the discontent and all the labor unions. So it was a very difficult time for any form of industry in England at all. Then Ford bought a couple, they bought Jaguar and they bought Volvo. And this was supposed to be the start of their luxury car division. And Ford put in a massive amount of money. And all the new Jaguar models, including the most modern one I've got, started out with Ford investment into Jaguar. And Ford had a policy at that stage where you had to use, Ford also owned Aston Martin, that was also part of their luxury division. You had to use a similar chassis to any other Ford. So they did adapt a Ford Mondeo chassis, but the majority of the engine was a brand new engine designed by Jaguar, and they're still using that now in the modern Jaguars, the F-Types, my car, the XJ, the new XJ that's come out, etc. So Ford ownership was in fact very beneficial for Jaguar because they put a lot of money into it. And I mean, all the Aston Martins, except the V12 Aston Martin, are actually the same underpin as my Jaguar. They obviously more modified and more maybe a bit more specialized, but it's essentially the same motor car. And Ford gave that. Now Tata has bought them.
What do you think of the Tata?
Well, they're putting in the money as well. They're bringing out a new 4x4, and Tata has actually got the money to do it. And they, very similar to Ford, 20 or 25 years ago, they want a luxury brand. So they've bought Jaguar Land Rover. They own Land Rover as well now. And the new Evoque model was done with Tata money, all new models coming out there. So they certainly have put money into Jaguar, but I'm more interested in the cars that were built in the 50s and 60s.